What's up everyone, Adrian here, back at it again with another YouTube video. This time around, I want to talk about ways to grow as a photographer in 2026 and beyond as well, because by all means, I don't want these tips to just be taken within the context of the year 2026, but it is January of the new year, so we want to go ahead and see what we can do to change our habits and just grow as photographers or as creatives and just be totally awesome. And I bring this up because I've been meaning to do this at the end of 2025, but because of how things got busy, I just decided to hold it off and just create more video content after the new year and just some things settled down. And this also stems from a lot of things I did for myself when I started out in photography and just to where I am now. But particularly last year, I just felt like I grew a lot as a photographer and just did things that were outside of my ordinary. So I want to go ahead and be able to share it with you guys, so that way you're totally awesome and that you can continue to grow as a photographer as well too. Now, a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about were just taken from my own experience. So go ahead and, think of that with a grain of salt, or just have that in the back of your mind of just thinking what you can do for yourself if you decide to go ahead and make some of these changes. Some of these are going to be pretty drastic. So I would say, yeah, just go ahead and weigh your options and just make sure that you're making the right decisions for yourself too. A lot of the things I'm going to be talking about relate to pre-production of the creative process of photography, production, as well as the post-production. When I say post-production, I will include, say, a Lightroom editing kind of tip, but at the same time, I don't want to focus too much on the software itself. I just want to kind of keep things, more broad and general, so that way you can just go ahead and just have more of, a holistic kind of view instead of just, some more, the specific kind of things. But I will get into some specific examples along the way, too, to help convey, my ideas, as well as just, help guide the conversation forward. Now, a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing, too, they're all going to be related to each other. And I'm not going to be doing this in a particular order, so if you see me bouncing around or just referencing other things, keep in mind it's all going to be related to each other. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and hop right into it. Starting off with number one, I would say shoot outside of what you normally do. So as you know me, I'm a portrait and travel photographer. I love connecting with people and taking portraits of them and just portraying them in a way that they want to be portrayed. But also, when it comes to my travel, I do a lot of things too. I do street photography, I do food, I do more abstract or maybe conceptual things, for example my Taiwan hands project when I was shooting the night markets, night photography, long exposures, you name it. But when it came to last year, there was just a couple things I did outside of my ordinary that I felt was for me not one unusual, but at the same time it helped me grow in different ways that I didn't think that I would be able to do, and just made me more confident as a shooter. So my first one being, as I did a graduation shoot for my home in Cambria. Now, I haven't done a graduation shoot for quite a while, so there were some things that I had to go and refresh upon myself, look at my old works, just look at some reference photos, but also converse with my client in a way about what it is that they want out of their photos, so that way I have expectations of what it is that I can go ahead and meet when it comes to what aesthetic or style that they're looking for, and also just what shots, and also just what purpose that they're doing it for. Are they doing it for say digital media, or are they doing it for the physical media too? So just having those in mind just really helped me out a lot when just trying to figure out what the end goal is and create a mutually fulfilling conclusion. I would say the other thing too that I did for myself this past year was shoot not only an engagement shoot, but also shoot a wedding as well too. So those were two really exciting things that I did. Now, prior to those shoots, I did not do anything in that capacity. The most I did was a proposal shoot at that for one of my homies, but at the same time I have not done an engagement shoot or a wedding shoot. So something that I did for myself was just really ask for help, whether it be looking to some of my friends within that kind of photography space or creative space, and also just conversing with my client about hey, what it is that you're looking for too. Send some, say, reference photos on Pinterest, Google Images, stock photos, whatever it may be, so that way I have a sense of what it is that you're looking for too. And it kind of bleeds off into the second point that I want to make in this video, but I will hop back into number one eventually, is ask for help when you don't need it. So there are things that you don't know. You don't have to just do things on your own. Go ahead, you have so many different tools at your disposal. You have ChatGPT, you have Google Images, you have Adobe Stock Images, you have your clients themselves too. Create a conversation between the two so that way you can go ahead and set some guidelines about like how things are going to progress, and also just like what it is that you're all looking for at the end, but also just add a little bit of your personality into the shoot itself too. You don't have to be married to just like some of the reference photos that they provided. Granted, when you rock up to a location, you're not going to have everything planned out perfectly. You got to kind of have to like roll with it, but at the same time, just knowing like what it is and having a baseline of like what you're falling back on really helps out a lot. In a way to help me go ahead and navigate these shoots too, when I thought about the graduation shoot, the wedding shoot, as well as the engagement shoot too, when you think about it in a very broad general sense, they're all portraits of people. Just the capacity of like how many people that are included, and also just like the theme of what's going on is going to be different. But at the same time, if you're going to be taking pictures of people, you want to take them pictures of like, say, in like not really in a posed kind of manner, unless like it is choreographed that way, but also just getting candid photos of just like in the moment, detailed shots, just really helps out a lot too. I would say something that helped me out was well in my creative process, which kind of bleeds off into point number 3, is you don't always have to shoot for social media or Instagram. Shoot in a wider like frame or field of view that you're normally doing. So I would say for most of my work, I tend to share it on social media, if not my website. But when it came to shooting in these engagement shoots as well as the wedding shoots or even the graduation shoot, something I did that was out of the ordinary, which because I wasn't sharing these for, say, social media, and I was doing it for like more of the digital print or the digital media or even the physical print, I would shoot in the landscape orientation, but I would shoot in a 16:9 setting, because the way that I'm thinking about it as a creative is not only being able to help my client realize their vision in like a physical form, but also me as a photographer, like I want to convey the idea that this is something that you can look back on and just reminisce and have like really nostalgic feeling about it, or feel a certain type of way when it came to that work too, which I would say kind of bleeds off into point number 4 too, is what is the feeling that you want to convey that when it comes to photography. Now, you can take a reference photo, you can shoot the exact same reference photo for frame by frame for what it is, but at the same time, like, I would say the essence of like what the message is and who you're delivering it to and who you're also sharing it with really does matter a lot, because if there's no feeling or essence behind it, it's kind of just the work as it is. It's a little bit more of an abstract concept, but a really good way that I could put it was when it came to those engagement, wedding, as well as like proposal shoots that I did, I wanted to convey something where it was much more of a brighter image, something warmer too, because I want to make it as like a movie where that you can just keep on rewatching and also just feel really good about it and just feel really happy. And I use warm tones throughout some of my images. I'm not going to show them up here because I wanted to respect my friends, as also just like some of my clients and their privacy as well too. But at the same time, just having some like warmth, brightness, at least in my editing style and just like the way that I'm shooting and how I'm shooting it, really does convey that sense of like, hey, this is something that like just makes me really happy, and I can just look at this series of photos like, say, 50 years from now and just remind myself of like, this is like a really happy and also just like really young time in my life of like when this certain kind of event happened as well too. So yes, shoot out of what's ordinary and be able to ask for help is like super huge, because not only are you also making yourself a really effective communicator and just like planner as well too, and just showing that like you care about their interests as, you know, the client or like what they're looking for. Don't spread yourself out too thin, but at the same time, like shooting something out of what you're normally doing, it makes you feel uncomfortable because now there's a challenge presented to you, but at the same time, like, you feel really good in just knowing that like, hey, this is something that I can go ahead and tackle, and that when you overcome it, you're just much stronger later on. Like that saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Am I right? The other thing that I want to talk about, work with limitations. So by having a limiting factor, whether it be gear or a concept, just helps make the shoot go along much more, I would say, efficiently or smoothly. A really good way that I can put this is, for example, in my recent video in my 50mm lens, doing a review about that, I talked about how a 50mm lens versus a 24-70 or like a zoom lens in general can be really beneficial, because now you're taking a lot of the thought process of just like, hey, do I want to go for like, say, 20-40mm or a 35mm, 50mm, 70mm? You take that, in a way, orthodox of choice or paradox of choice. I think it's paradox of choice. this overwhelming list of choices and just narrowing it down so that way you can just go ahead and shoot as it is helps out a lot, because when you have less things to worry about, you can just do things as they are. Another thing that I can go ahead and point out too is, say, work with say limiting colors, or just work with, say, like a limiting, like, say, aperture, or a theme itself too. So as in my works, I like to go ahead and experiment with a lot of different things, whether it be like, hey, I want to go ahead and do something more abstract, like, say, a lo-fi album cover, or I want to shoot the color blue, or I want to shoot for something that where I want to make an album cover of something. There's a lot of things that you can do for yourself to help limit what it is the process is, and just make things so much easier in the end, so that way you can just edit for what it is too. Again, like, this isn't supposed to be like a gear review or a Lightroom editing tutorial, but by all means, like, if you do want to go ahead and check out some of my Lightroom editing tutorials, I do have a couple up on my channel already, which I will include somewhere along either the title card over here or just in the end of the video itself too. Additionally, if you want to see that 50mm lens review in more detail, I will also throw that somewhere on the screen as well too, or just even at the end of the video as well. Now, I'm going to take a little break here because water is definitely important. Stay thirsty, my friends. A couple more tips that I want to dive into is, on the theme of shooting something that's out of the ordinary, I would say travel as well too. That could be a huge thing that has like helped me, that has at least helped me grow as a photographer as well. I say that because when I was, and I've been meaning to save this tip for the end, but I will elaborate more later on, is when I was working back in corporate, I didn't have a lot of chances to travel. Granted, I was in the office from like Monday to Friday, 40 hours a week, so the only times that I was able to practice my photography or even just go out on vacation was whether I had PTO the weekends, or when there was like a extended long vacation for a holiday. But now that I'm in a different role and I'm working in the outdoor retail industry in my current occupation, I'm able to have a much more flexible schedule, and also just be able to explore different things outside of like that I didn't think that I was going to be able to do while I was still working corporate. So I've been to many different national parks within California, parks outside of California too, different cities, and also just take really big trips outside of the United States in general. And that's helped me get a different perspective of just like the world, and also just how I shoot different things. Something that I can relate to this topic too is that as a Santa Clara born and raised native, and also just been living here in the Bay Area for 27 years of my life, there are a lot of compositions that I see of the Bay Area that in a way kind of like feel numb to me, because now like I kind of just see the same thing but in a different composition, which can be refreshing at times. But there's only so many pictures of, say, like the Golden Gate Bridge that I can see until I'm just like, you know what, like I want to see something different. I want to see another bridge elsewhere. It doesn't have to be in the Golden Gate, but just like another bridge that just looks really cool helps me out a lot. So yes, traveling a lot is a big thing too, at least from my experience. Now, you don't have to take a really big trip because trips can be expensive. You can take like a day trip or something, or you could just go somewhere for like the weekend. There's things that you can do for yourself that you can go ahead and experience in a different light elsewhere. And speaking of this too, I am going to be going to Japan in 2026. Well, it is 2026 now. I'm going to be going to Japan in end of March and early April. So that's going to be really exciting, and it kind of bleeds off into my next point too. Shoot in different conditions as well. So if you're shooting in the same condition, it kind of gets repetitive, it kind of gets dull too. But at the same time, if you're going to be doing a shoot in a different location but at a different season, that's going to be huge. So because I haven't shot in cherry blossom season, and this is going to be my first time, again, kind of relating it back to the second point of the video, like ask for help, look for your sources, look for different medias, so that way you can go ahead and get a kind of briefing or get a general guideline down of like what it is that you want to go ahead and shoot for. So I use ChatGPT, I watch a lot of YouTube myself too, and just will go on Google Images as well, just look at other photographers to go ahead and prepare myself for those kinds of conditions. Because again, what you don't know, you don't know. You only know what you know. So by preparing yourself, it's like that saying goes, luck favors the prepared. You are going to be much more lucky if you are prepared, and you're going to be much more prepared if you're lucky. Kind of goes a little bit both ways, but you get what I mean. Challenge yourself, do things that are outside of your ordinary, and just go into locations where like it is different. Kind of bleeding off that a little bit too, like say, even though the same like kind of season can in a way produce similar results, they are still going to be different location wise. I bring this up because I live in California. I experienced fall here in California in different occasions. I've experienced fall in the city where like some of the trees turn to like a really cool yellow color. Outside of that, I've been to Mammoth Lakes, which is like east of Santa Clara of where I'm at, and I've also seen like fall colors in the nature preserves over there. Granted, fall is going to be different in, say, Vermont, where I went with my homie Oliver back in October, I think like 2024 or 2023, something like that. Can't recall exactly when, but yes, going into a condition where like it is going to be similar, but also different, it's going to help you grow as a photographer, because like now you're going to be doing something a little bit different than like what you normally do. Plus, like, you see different like architecture and scenery. But yes, with that in mind, shoot outside of the norm. Speaking of shooting outside of the norm too, kind of leading off of this, is just do something for yourself that you just haven't done already. So I am doing something that I'm not doing for myself already, and that is going to Japan in 2026. But at the tail end of last year, there's something that I didn't think that I was going to be doing at all, and that was doing a photo competition with my homie Oliver. I can't speak for Oliver, and I don't know if that was his first time, but I can definitely speak from my experience that it was my first time, and just having an idea of like what it is that the client or like the requester is looking for helped me get a sense of like what it is I need to deliver on. And I'm gonna throw up a picture of what I took as my submission, and I'm thinking of doing a YouTube editing tutorial on it, because there was a lot of like masks, but also just like I think it's a really good example of just showing like how I got to the end result from the raw file. So that's going to be in the works, but not going to be anytime soon, because there's a lot of other ideas I have in mind too. But yes, doing something that is just unusual, and in a way like it was at the time for me uncomfortable, because I was just like unsure of like how things were going to pan out. But I'm really glad that I did it, because now like I have experience of like what it is to be in that kind of setting, but also just like work towards the end goal of like what it is that the requester is like looking for. And so it's going to be really fun to see like, hey, if my photo gets selected, that's really cool. If it doesn't, hey, totally alright. I'm going to show you guys how I got the photo. So, with all that in mind, I feel like there's a couple other points that are on the top of my head that I want to go ahead and convey, but a really big one that just comes to the forefront is going to be more of a big drastic lifestyle change. And by all means, you can go ahead and do this for yourself. I'm not saying go ahead and do it, but just consider like what it is that you want to do for yourself if you want to progress as a photographer or a creative. So something I did back in February 2023 was I left my corporate job and now currently work in the outdoor retail industry. And I did that for a couple reasons. I just, for one, wasn't happy working in tech, and I just felt like I was spending more time dedicating it to work than it was to really myself and like what it is that I want to do creatively. So I decided to work in the outdoor retail space and do something that, well, not only am I getting a bigger pay cut, but I have, say, 4 days out of the week that I'm working and have 3 days off. And because of that schedule, now I'm able to dedicate more of my time to what I want to do creatively. So I was able to meet some really cool people along the way, dedicate more of my time to creating photos, videos, and eventually create a YouTube channel so that way I can help you guys be awesome. But really explore the world for what it is and just be that travel photographer that I am. So it's been a huge step in my career and just like finding my place in that respect. And I would say that think about what it is that where you're working at, and also just question for yourself like, is what I'm doing currently helping me out in a certain kind of in my goals? At least in my case, working in tech, selling tech, and also just being a customer success manager, or a CSM for short, was not what was driving my photography. Granted, it taught me a lot of different skills that I can use, say, in a business context or conversational kind of setting. But at the same time, like, I just felt like that was a part of me that was missing. So figuring out where it is that you're working, determining what is where you're working at, fulfilling to you, and also helping satisfy your goals, and also seeing what other sources are out there to help you make that shift, so that way you have more time to dedicate to your craft, can help you out too. Granted, it's not for everyone, and by all means, I'm not telling you to like quit your day job right now, just go straight into, say, content creation, or rather just like think about like, yeah, what it is that I'm currently doing. Is it fulfilling my goals? If it's not, maybe it's time to look for a change of pace or do something differently. Because at the end of the day, it is your life about like how you want to go ahead and progress with it. I would say too, one thing that I do remember about that I want to talk about. I'm not even numbering things at this point anymore, but something I want to talk about is when it came to that lifestyle change of now working in the outdoor retail industry, something big that happened to me in like my current occupation that was also really fruitful for my growth as a photographer and as a creative was creating content for my favorite brand. So like, yeah, I love where I work right now, and to be able to create content for them or have that ability, that was totally awesome, because now I have that experience of like what it's like to work with a brand, but also just like bounce ideas off of other creatives, so that way I could just go ahead and see like what it is that is, you know, beneficial for who I'm working with, but at the same time, like, how do I express myself in, say, the light that I want to be in, which kind of bleeds off into this other point too of like work with other creatives within either the same space that you are, photography, videography, whatever it may be, but also like work with other creatives that are just outside of like what you normally do too. So a really good example that I can bring up is one of my homies, MukbangYourMama, or as we all know her, Christina. She's an absolute homie, so if you don't know where to eat in the Bay Area or even outside of California, don't worry, I'll ping her and link her down in the description below. She is totally awesome. She's got your back. Seeing as how she records and also just shoots in general and just plans things out helps me grow as a photographer, because now I'm seeing like what kind of best practices that I can kind of like massage into my workflow, and also just be able to bounce ideas off of someone else is pretty huge. If you're continuing to work with people within the same space as you are, there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, like, you kind of think in this hive mindset of like, you know, we're all doing the same thing and doing the same actions. Why not look to other different sources for other inspiration and media? A couple other things before I want to wrap up this video too, because there are so many other things that I can go ahead and talk about, but there's a couple that I just want to share a little bit more too. I would say look at other sources of media, as well as just like areas outside of like where you're normally studying. So like for me, I have a bunch of different photography books that I go ahead and collect and draw inspiration from, but I also draw inspiration from like my movies, TVs, books, all that good jazz, or even like art books for some of my favorite like creatives, illustrators to be exact. So that way I have a sense of like, you know, how are they editing for a portrait, or like how are they conveying this certain like landscape or scene. And I've already shared a video of that in my how to find photography style and how to develop it, which I will also drop in the end title card somewhere around here too. But yes, work with other creatives, look for different sources, and just think outside of the box differently, and just put yourself in situations where like you are a little bit more uncomfortable, and but also feel challenged within reason too. What's up everyone, Adrian back at it here. I'm in my editing mode, as you can tell by my glasses. I wanted to redo the last part of this video because some of my ideas just got muddled up, and I just wanted to clearly convey the last point I wanted to make. So yes, challenge yourself within reason. It can be uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's good to have a challenge. And there's times where maybe you have a job offer or someone's looking for work. It's okay to say no and just back out if you don't feel comfortable, or like you don't feel like you have the capability. I have definitely done that myself, where there's times where, hey, someone's looking for a certain kind of video work and they're looking for certain things. Hey, I may not be the right person. Just go ahead and set them up with someone else. Or if they're looking for, say, like family portrait shoots, which is something that I don't do, or like photos of like, say, taking of a newborn, which I definitely don't do, go ahead and set them up with like, say, your other contacts as well. So that way you're thinking about their interests, you want to set them up for success, them being your clients, and just make sure that they're happy, because if you're doing something where like you do not have either the capability of doing it or you just really don't feel comfortable, chances are you're probably going to panic more oftentimes than not, or just not feel like you're really into it or you have your heart set into it, and that's not going to deliver on a really good customer experience. So keep that in mind. It's okay to say no. Just know your limits and say, you know what, maybe that's not for me, I'm going to go ahead and back out, but here you go. There's other people that you can go and connect with. So with that in mind, let's just get right back into the video. We have dove into a lot of different topics and a lot of different ways that like not only has I grown as a photographer, but go ahead and take these tips, tricks, and just think on them for yourself too, and just think like what it is that you want to change for yourself, because by at the end of the day, your life is yours to choose, and also just progress how you want to progress it too. And I'll leave you off with this too. So think about my right hand over here. This is going to be point A. Point B, which is my left hand over here. You want to get from point A to point B. Point A is where you're currently at. Point B is like the promised land, you know, your totally awesome self. But this space in between point A and point B, that's a huge gap. And in that gap, the wider it is, the more potential there is for growth. So as you progress from point A to point B, granted there are going to be trials and tribulations along the way that prevent you or even just challenge you to get you to where you want to be. But by overcoming those, addressing those situations, understanding your capabilities, and seeing like how you can go ahead and progress and be awesome, you shorten that gap and you're able to get to point B much better. in baby steps or even in great strides because everyone progresses differently. But yes, by shrinking that gap, you are going to be a much more confident, creative, and just be a totally more awesome person and professional as well too. Granted, on the flip side, the smaller that gap is, the less potential for growth there is. So why not just challenge yourself and be able to do something for yourself, and also just put yourself out there and be totally awesome. Now, if you want to be awesome and you want to grow with me, definitely check more of my videos later on that I've produced earlier on, and I will produce more content for you guys later on this year, because this is what I want to do for this YouTube channel, is be more consistent and be able to dedicate it to you guys to help you grow along the way. So let's grow along together. So you can expect more from this channel later on is not only some vlogs about like my travels, but also just like more editing tutorials, tips and tricks, and just like topics like these too, where we're just trying to figure out ways of like from my experience, like how do we go ahead and just grow together. So with that in mind, I have talked quite a bit. I am quite thirsty right now. Stay hydrated, my friends. So with all that in mind, if you haven't checked out my other videos about how to edit, or even how to find your photography style along the way, I dropped them in the title cards, as well as just like in the end cards here too. So with that in mind, I'll see you in the next video. Catch you around. Peace out.